But this angle, even though it's clearly there, is now being kind of buried by the mainstream media. And I think that's mainly related to the fact that, you know, the growth of ISIS in the first place was almost entirely as a result of the US government destabilizing Syria, the US government's allies, Qatar, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, funding and arming ISIS to begin with. Now we have people from all over Europe, young men, flying over to Syria and Iraq to fight on behalf of ISIS. We have the so-called moderate rebels in Syria, which were never moderate to begin with, even when, you know, the CFR said back in 2012, let's basically support Al-Qaeda. We now see that the arms that we gave them are crossing over into ISIS hands. So when these actual organic attacks happen, ones that aren't provocateured by the authorities as they have been in the past, we're now kind of seeing the media bury the extremist political motivation behind them, because there's a sense that they need to distract from the fact that this is partially caused by blowback as a result of Western foreign policy. And we're seeing it again in what happened with the Sydney siege.
Except that on the other side, too, we have this article up by Kit Daniels where we've got a former CIA chief saying that ISIS is going to attack the U.S. soon. He says sometime over the next year or so, guaranteed. So, I mean, it looks like they're, at the same time, they want to be politically correct and they want to distance themselves from this monster that they've created. On the other hand, I think they're more than capable of using that to justify yet another new war abroad, don't you?
Yeah, and that's definitely an issue. But what I've noticed is obviously immediately after 9/11, any kind of attack whatsoever, they would immediately jump on the Islamist angle, push the hysterics to grease the skids for war and military intervention. It seems they've flipped the opposite way. I mean, take this Sydney siege, for example. Now, the media narrative, now that this has ended, is that basically this guy was a lone nut, a criminal, and that he was not politically motivated, that he was out on bail for being an accessory to murder, other charges related to sexual offenses. And they're now steering the narrative as to that was his motivation behind taking these dozens of hostages. But if you actually followed the story from the beginning, what evidence came out during the siege was completely ignored by the media and in fact censored in some cases. There were videos made by the hostages inside the cafe in Sydney where they said, the hostage takers told us to tell the world this is an ISIS attack and that the media is covering up the fact that it's an ISIS attack. We also know that the hostage taker demanded an ISIS flag. We later saw a generic Islamic flag displayed in the cafe window. We had a Facebook post from one of the hostages who said, the man wants the world to know Australia is under attack by the Islamic State. Now, even if this guy is not a member of ISIS, which, you know, he almost certainly isn't, this is obviously inspired by ISIS. But the media has completely buried that. Some of them don't even mention the fact. They agreed not to broadcast any of this information at the time. And even after the siege is now over, YouTube and Facebook are still deleting all these videos where these hostages say, this guy says he's a member of ISIS and that this is an ISIS attack on Australia. But very quickly, in the aftermath, we saw the media take this route where they buried that narrative and began to focus almost entirely on him being a lone figure and that he was just a criminal motivated by his own personal problems. So this is a general trend that I've seen over the past year or so, and it relates to the fact that there are these individuals out there. We had reports on the southern border from police officials, respected officials, saying that ISIS was active on the southern border just across there in Mexico. The DHS vehemently denied that over and over again. So this ties into that general trend of them downplaying Islamist extremist ideology linked to these lone wolf attacks, because at the moment it doesn't fit their broader narrative.
I think that's the key. At the moment, it doesn't fit their broader narrative, because we saw back in 2013, they were doing everything they could to try to start a war with Syria and using these same people. And now, after they've gotten Muslims abroad, like this guy, who basically is, he could be a lone actor who is fired up about this, but clearly he is motivated by his Islamicist attitudes with the signs and the flags that he put up there. We're going to be right back with Paul Joseph Watson. Stay with us.
This hour of GCN programming is proudly sponsored by BlockitPocket.com. Protect your privacy and data and render your phone or device completely undetectable. Go under the radar when your phone's not in use with BlockitPocket.com.
Hi, Ted Anderson with Midas Resources. Is it time to convert paper 401ks and IRAs to solid gold and silver yet? Get our 10 Reasons book free. Call 800-686-2237. That's 800-686-2237.
This is Dan Pilla. Do you owe the IRS money you can't pay? Are tax debts crippling you? I've defended people from the IRS for over 30 years. I've helped thousands, and I can help you too. I wrote the book on IRS settlement, and I'm telling you, there's no such thing as a hopeless case. Call 800-34-NO-TAX to finally get free of IRS debt. With the IRS's new programs, there's never been a better time to solve your problem. Call 800-34-NO-TAX. That's 800-34-NO-TAX, or my website, danpilla.com.
This is Sharon Hunt. Before using Heart and Body Extract, my energy level was very, very low. I could only walk a few feet and then would have to sit down. I was tired and lethargic. But after taking Heart and Body Extract, my energy level has improved greatly, and I can now walk longer distances without getting tired so fast. Thank you, Heart and Body Extract.
Learn the secrets of an effective, natural, 100% organic nutritional supplement for a healthy heart and circulation at hbextract.com.
Hey, Boomer! I learned in school today that 60% of our bodies are made of water. Good thing we have the Berkey system. It's the cleanest, best water ever. Mom says it's because the Berkey's filtration system cleans out the bad stuff and leaves only pure, delicious water. I know, right? You love it too. Yeah, I'm thirsty too. Let's go get some. Get Berkey clean water by calling 877-886-3653. That's 877-886-3653. Or visit GoBerkey.com.
American gardeners and fellow patriots, make the right choice with your money, time, and your family food supply. Choose 100% pure heirloom seeds in the Survival Seed Vault from MyPatriotSupply.com. Why spend more? The Survival Seed Vault from MyPatriotSupply.com is only $37.95 and includes 20 varieties of pure, hardy, easy-to-grow heirloom seeds. Yes, only $37.95. That's 70% less than our competitors. You could buy 3 Survival Seed Vaults for less than one of theirs. The Survival Seed Vault from MyPatriotSupply.com includes detailed planting and seed-saving instructions and ships same day. Plus, all orders over $49 ship free. MyPatriotSupply.com is American-owned by patriots like you, passionate about freedom and preparedness. Call now, 866-229-0927. That's 866-229-0927. Or discover more emergency preparedness items when you order at MyPatriotSupply.com. Choose the original. Choose the Survival Seed Vault at MyPatriotSupply.com.
Do you have relatives and friends that are convinced there is no need ever to prepare for any kind of emergency? Are these also folks you buy Christmas presents for? At 30dayfoodsupply.com, we can solve both of these problems at the same time. Go to 30dayfoodsupply.com or call 541-229-0010. We can ship your Christmas presents directly to them. Choose from our original $99 30-day food supply, our long-term storage vegan burger mixes, and other oatmeal, soups, porridges, beans, and granolas for everyday use. All products are non-GMO, MSG-free, and vegetarian. Most are gluten, soy, and nut-free. Call 541-229-0010 today. Oregon Trail Foods and 30dayfoodsupply.com keep prices low, cutting out the middleman by buying directly from their producers in Oregon. Remember, only $10 ships your entire order to the lower 48. Visit the website 30dayfoodsupply.com. Call 541-229-0010. 30dayfoodsupply.com. 541-229-0010.
Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight, your host today. Joining me from the UK is Paul Joseph Watson. We've been talking about the attack in Sydney, what's behind it, how is it being spun. We're going to go back to Paul Joseph Watson, but we're going to also take your calls beginning the next segment if you would like to weigh in and tell us what you think is behind it. As Paul has pointed out, it's kind of strange that as they were trying to ramp up a war in Syria, yet these most recent lone wolf attacks, as they're being portrayed by the media has changed the narrative, not trying to tie these Islamicist attacks in Canada and Australia, not trying to tie those to a broader agenda just yet. But, of course, we do see the CIA saying sometime this year we can expect to, guaranteed, we'll see some kind of an ISIS attack in America. Now, that number, if you want to call in, is 800-259-9231. That's 800-259-9231. Paul, going back to what you were talking about, I mean, it looks like they're deliberately trying to keep a lid on this, trying to make this about a single shooter. Do you think they're trying to keep everything quiet until they've got more neocons sworn in from the recent election? What do you think is behind all this?
I think they're doing it for a number of reasons. One of them is cultural sensitivity. I mean, there was a story which came out as this was developing, this viral hashtag campaign, I'll Ride With You. There was a woman on a train or a bus in Sydney or in Australia who took off her hijab headscarf because she feared some kind of retribution from other Australians who would verbally or physically abuse her because of what was taking place in this cafe in Sydney. There were no actual reports of violence directed against Muslims as a result of this. So one of the other commuters said, I'll walk with you, and it turned into this huge international hashtag campaign. And, you know, as one person tweeted, who I retweeted, it cynically shifts the narrative of the Sydney siege away from violent Muslims by casting non-Muslims as the real danger. And that went on to completely dominate the narrative. And then you had the Sydney Morning Herald coming out and even suggesting that Australians should have, quote, empathy for the terrorist. They said, how should we feel for the perpetrator and his family? So there was this kind of odd cultural sensitivity going on, not so much sympathy focused on the actual hostages being terrorized inside the cafe, but a kind of deflection to blame Australians for Islamophobia that wasn't actually taking place. So that was another weird little element to this.
Yeah, I know there's been a lot of complaints in Australia. They had people were concerned and angry about the fact that Muslim women can wear hijab in public, but nobody else can cover their face. They even had some protesters show up to the Capitol there. I think one of them was wearing a Ku Klux Klan hood and they made him take it off, and underneath it he had a Muslim hijab on it. You know, so it's like, that's fine. I think maybe we ought to all be able to wear masks if we want to with the surveillance state, but to let one group have it and not to let others have it, that was the issue. I think that was a sticking point. But yeah, it is very much a political correctness that's going on, isn't it?
Yeah, and it reminds me of that story last week where the cop in Tennessee pulled over Saudi Arabians who's they had paper tags on their car. They said they had a dead baby in the trunk of the car, and he basically let them go. No questions asked. They were on their way because of cultural sensitivity.
I never tried that when I got pulled over by the cops. I'm sorry. I said I'd never tried that when I got pulled over the cops, but I guess it wouldn't work for me.
Yeah, and he was praised by the police chief and this Islamic scholar that they consulted for the story, when obviously it doesn't matter what cultural sensitivity is in the background. It's a potential crime. You need to check it out. Police officers smell weed in somebody's car, they send them to jail. We've heard stories about that over and over again. So there is that element to it. I mean, the FBI crime stats, which have just come out for last year, are interesting because they show that Jews in America are 4 times more likely to be the victims of hate crimes than Muslims, and those crimes are less likely to be investigated. That's not neocon Zionist propaganda. It's FBI crime statistics. So it suggests that this Islamophobia thing, again, is being whipped up and generated by certain elements of the media for their own agenda, and it's not actually a major problem in the West. But in the immediate aftermath of this Sydney siege, the main concern amongst many Australians, and this was the top trending hashtag on Twitter above anything else, was that Muslims on public transport might get some retribution. There was a sporadic report about some verbal abuse, but nothing really whatsoever, and that became the main focus of the whole story.
And
so
yet,
again,
what really happened here is, we got to go to a break, but what really happened here is that you had the Australian government, for whatever reason, failed to protect the people from a guy who was clearly violent and crazy with his long rap sheet. We're going to be right back with Paul Joseph Watson, and we'll take your calls and comments. Stay with us.
We're on the march.